A nurse hovered behind her, eyes glistening. "Ken," the nurse whispered. "She's been unresponsive for hours. But when I said your name, she insisted we call you." The air left my lungs. All the clever excuses, all the brave facades crumbled. There was only her labored breathing, the rhythmic beep of machines, and the crushing weight of everything I couldn't say. "I'm in jail." I couldn't say that. "I failed." I can't say that. "I'm so scared." No, can't say that. 15 minutes. That's how long I just stared at her, saying nothing, memorizing the slope of her nose. She's still elegant even now, the way her silver hair fanned across the pillow like spilled moonlight. Every second dripped with the cruel irony. I, the world traveler, was caged. She, who'd outlived wars and heartbreaks, was finally out of time. Tears burned behind my eyes, acidic and insistent, but I clenched my jaw. If these were her last moments, she wouldn't see me broken. She'd seen enough of that in '08 when the divorce shattered me. In 15 when malaria nearly killed me in Cape Verde. This time I'd be strong. "Mom," I rasped, the words clawing up my throat. "I love you." Pause. Then her hand twitched. Just a flutter, really, but the nurse gasped. "She heard you," she murmured, cradling my mother's fingers. "Oh, Ken, she squeezed my..." Then the monitor flatlined. One long, endless tone. The nurse's mouth kept moving, but I heard nothing. Not the guards arguing down the hall. Not my cellmate's nervous shuffling behind me. Just the silence where her breath should have been. On my birthday, the universe's final joke. The day she'd once celebrated with chocolate cakes and off-key renditions of Happy Birthday, now marked in ashes. The guard pried the phone from my numb hand, saying, "That's it, time's up." Oh, how right he was. Time's up. Later, they'd say I didn't make a sound, that I just sat there staring at the concrete wall as if it might morph into her face one last time. But inside, I was 6 years old again, sobbing into her lap after my first fist fight. I was 30, her arms tight around me at Dad's funeral. I was 60, her laughter ringing through the phone. Oh, my wild boy, always chasing the next adventure. Now the adventures were over. And for the first time since they'd slapped the cuffs on me, I let the tsunami come.
Amazing. Well, if it gets to me like that, it's going to get to people. Right? So I don't know what to say now. I'm filling up. That was a difficult one. Well, it's a couple of days since Ken and I made this podcast. And since then, we've been working on a Give, Send, Go account for him, as we mentioned, or I mentioned, I think, that we might do during the main interview. You probably just heard the little intro that I put before the theme music there. A section of Ken reading such a powerful section from the book that he's written about his experiences, about when his mum died, and he saw his mum die on the phone while he was in jail. It's so powerful. You can see how powerful it was because we were both crying at the end. But watch the whole episode to see the full reading of that. And there's some other readings from the book that Ken does. But you can see how brilliant this book will be, what an amazing writer Ken is, what an important film it would be, and what a dire situation he's in right now because of these people who have completely extorted him. So please look at the link below, go to the Give, Send, Go campaign and give generously. Let's help Ken out. And there's lots of perks in there depending on how much you give. So, yeah, I think after this podcast, if you listen to the whole thing, you'll love Ken as much as I do. And you'll realize that it's a very worthwhile cause. So there we go. Give generously. Enjoy the podcast. So welcome back to the Red Pill Sangha podcast again. And I've got a dear old friend of mine, Ken Kutch. And I'm going to do a little bit of a longer waffle to start with on this one because we go back a long way. And I just want to fill in some quick things so we don't have to get stuck in it, because any of these bits we could do a whole podcast on. And, I'll get these few things out the way. And in the early 90s, I was in a band called the Acrobats of Sa. And it was a hell of a band, actually. We took it for granted at the time, but we were playing one day some funny little dive somewhere in some remote northern town. And God knows how this crazy, brash American turned up in this place. I don't know what he was doing there, but he came up afterwards and said, "That was amazing. And I really want to take you on as a band. And I'm going to go out and run Virgin West Coast in America or something." He said, "My best friend's Phil Cortorero, and he was running Virgin at the time." And, in the music business, you hear a lot of things like that. And we thought, this is bollocks. And I thought, I don't know, we were probably a bit standoffish the first time we met, but I don't really remember the ins and outs of it. But then I phoned up Virgin and I managed to get Phil Cortorero
in
on the
Los
line.
Angeles.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah. And I managed to get him on the line. And he said, "No, it's genuine. Ken's great. If he thinks you're the band, you're out here." There we were. We were going out to America. We were sorted. We were done. That was fantastic. So not long after, Sony bought out Virgin, I think. Phil Cortorero lost his job. Ken never got to go out there, and neither did we. However, Ken stayed in England. Ken managed us, and we became amazing friends. It became obvious that Ken knew almost everybody in the whole world. And he's got so many contacts, and he's so chilled with it. He just sort of drops these little stories in now and again. But he ended up getting us into Peter Gabriel's Real World Studios to record there with Dave Bottrell engineering. Even the stories about that could fill a podcast. He managed to finance that by getting some finance from some minor royal of the Singapore royal family or something. I mean, the things that Ken does, his creativity is amazing. He got us to be voted the best unsigned band in England on Steve Wright Radio 2, I seem to remember. We made some incredible recordings, and there is recently somebody has put up a whole gig of this band. So you can see who I've been talking about. I'll drop that in underneath. Check it out. I watched it and I thought this will be kind of interesting, but my God, we were good. Even though I say it myself, it's no wonder Ken was impressed. But we became great friends. And then the band split up, as bands do. And later on, probably, when was it? It was probably early 2000s. We got in touch again. And Ken helped out with my novel, Illusion of Maya. And it was Ken's creativity that got my book, Arthritis, the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me, to be a Kindle bestseller. And he's been so supportive over the years, and we understand each other very well. We're both Geminis. In fact, Ken's birthday is the day after mine, 23rd of May.
Yeah.
And we've just got on so well. And I'm going to let Ken take you through some of his early history because it's fascinating in the music business. But the point that's got us here, the reason that's got us here to do this podcast is that after traveling out and finding his paradise and setting up this lovely resort, he got involved in a horrific Midnight Express level experience where he got imprisoned for 5 months on a trumped up drugs charge. And his experiences are just heartbreaking. But Ken has written a book, and I've heard excerpts from it, and he is the most amazing writer. And you've probably in the intro to this heard a little clip from one of those. And Ken's going to drop a few more clips in because he's written it absolutely beautifully. And, you know, it's so heartfelt and so horrifying at the same time, but it's just written so beautifully. So Ken's going to read out some of those when we get round to that section. So stay tuned for that. I know you'll be hooked. And I if there's anybody out there, we'll talk about it probably more at the end of the podcast, but if anybody's out there who knows any publishers, who knows anybody that they could send it to, Ken, please, we'll put Ken's email underneath, and Ken can respond to that. And send through the book, which I'm dying to read the whole thing. I've heard the stories and I've heard the clips, but I haven't read the whole thing yet, and I can't wait because it's going to be amazing. And I can't wait for the film either, because that's going to outdo Midnight Express. But anyway, so, and also Ken's in a horrific situation since some corrupt officials took most of his money, pretty much all of it. And so he's...
Extortion. Total extortion.
And so we're probably going to set up a give, send, go. So if anyone's inspired by this and wants to help Ken out, because honestly, he absolutely deserves it. And, you know, he's on like, what, a few boiled eggs a day or something after the incredible
six hard-boiled eggs a day.
There you go.
I'm eating 3 times a day, 2 hard-boiled eggs each time.
Yeah. So when you hear Ken's history, and the story of what happened to him and how we need to get this book out, support him. But anyway, Ken Kutch, my dear friend, welcome.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
So listen, tell everybody about your early life in the music business and stuff. Give them a hint of the stuff that you've done, because, my God, you've done a lot.
Well, it basically all started in the mid-'70s when I drove up to my favorite radio station and asked for a meeting with the manager, and said that I wanted to be an on-air talent at the radio station. And he sort of looked at me and laughed, but I think appreciated my self-confidence. And back in those days, you had to go take this test, a very thorough test. I think they call it third level operator's license or something like that. And the next thing I knew, I was an on-air talent radio DJ for the station. They said that I was 16. They said I was the youngest a DJ for an official Billboard recording station in America at the time. And that's what got things started. And after that, then I went to American University in Washington, D.C. from 76 to 80. And again, sort of barged in the office of the student, whatever it's called, the office that they all have on every university, and said, "You're bringing horrible concerts. I want to become the concert promoter." Okay, yeah, we don't like them either. And I got Sting and the Police, and Chrissy Hynde, Pretenders, Jerry Garcia Band, Jerry Garcia from Grateful Dead, many very well-known acts. by the time I left university, they said they wanted to build a statue for me on campus, which they never did. And after that, went up to New York and started to manage bands. I was offered jobs with record companies to do radio promotion, but I knew I couldn't do that. In fact, they would ask me in interviews, do you think you can go in there? I remember doing an interview for A&M Records do you think you can go into that radio station and stand on the desk of the programmer and say, this is the best music since sliced bread, And I kind of looked at their stuff and I would say, yeah, maybe for 5% of this. I was too honest. And so I realized the great thing about managing bands was that I could choose the music I wanted to work with, the personalities that I wanted to work with. And as you know, it was always like family, the relationship between the manager and the artist. We were always very close with each band. I took 3 bands to top 10. My first band was called Sly Fox, that had the top 10 single around the world called Let's Go All the Way. That was with capital EMI Records. One hit wonder, but it was quite a thrill at 22 years old to be driving down Broadway in a taxi at night on the way to go out to party and hear your band played over the radio. And then I managed the incredible bass player Jaco Pastorius from Weather Report in the last band that he had before he died, PDB, Pastorius, Denard, and Bullock. Hiram Bullock and actually put the band together. Hiram and I were very, very close friends.
Was that Kenwood Denard on drums?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Kenwood. And we rehearsed, oh God, Phil. We rehearsed, I don't know how many drummers for that group, of which, what's the name of the guy that took over in Simple Minds? That great black drummer guy does that wonderful fill I think he also played for Duran Duran for a while. He was getting around, great drummer. And we auditioned him and had to tell him no. I mean, an amazing drummer like that, but it was a very tricky 3-piece to play with between Jaco and Hiram, and Kenwood was the only one who got it right.
But just thinking that you had an audition coming up with Jaco Pastorius to scare the shit out of any drummer.
You would think exactly. Yeah. But and then after that, I was sitting in my apartment in New York one day and had this put on this show called Afro Pop. And he was interviewing a guy named Thomas Mapfumo from Zimbabwe, and just listening to him speak and about the things he was talking about. I said to my wife, I said, God, I want to manage this guy. And then the music came on and I was even more into him. And it turned out the guy who was interviewing him, I knew, was a friend of mine. So I called him up on the phone and I said, who is this guy? This Thomas guy. He goes, Thomas Mapfumo, you don't know about him? I said, no, he's the #1 act in Zimbabwe and has been since the 70s. He's looking for a manager. You want his phone number? And yes. Yeah. So I called him immediately from New York down to Zimbabwe. We spoke for an hour, got along like a house on fire. And I ended up, Thomas got a deal with Mango Island then. And we toured worldwide, opened for all of the Peter Gabriel WOMAD shows, in fact, that were happening around the world. That was my first intro to Peter Gabriel's world and Real World Studios, as Phil was talking about, and that sort of thing. So that was music. And then the when Zimbabwe got their independence, they obviously wanted Thomas to play at the Independence concert because of the role that he had played in the transition, the struggle from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe. And the other person that insisted on being on the show, which they had no problem with, was Bob Marley, because he was, as any of you reggae fans out there and Marley fans know, even had songs called Zimbabwe. He was well into the struggle that was occurring there. So Thomas and Bob Marley headlined the Independence show when Zimbabwe got their independence. And then 10 years later, they called me up and they said, Ken, they called from Namibia. Namibia was getting their independence and said, we want to try and recreate what happened in Zimbabwe. And Bob dead, we want to do Thomas Mapfumo and Ziggy Marley. And so I headed to Namibia, brought the band to Namibia. And while I was there, I met people from the UN because they had been doing peacekeeping transition. And a few years later, one of them was knocking on my door. It was in 95 on Portobello Road. He said, Ken, come across the street and have a shot of tequila with me. I've got an offer for you that you can't refuse. He says, I want to know if you can be on a plane in 5 days to Tajikistan to do a post-conflict reconciliation through arts and culture project. And one, I'd had a shot of tequila, so my tongue wasn't working that well. But two, it was quite a mouthful of UN speak, most of it. So I just thought of the words that I knew I could pronounce over again. And I said, plane, 5 days? Yeah, I'll do it. It took me a couple of weeks to learn how to say Tajikistan. And that started more than 20 years of doing projects using arts and culture as a vehicle. Music, film, puppet shows, opera, whatever were the most used forms of the arts in that particular country where I was working. That's what I would use as a vehicle to get messages out of reconciliation. Even then I found out that half of Thomas's 16-piece band had died of AIDS. And so I went into HIV AIDS prevention and started working in 10 countries in Africa, as well as 4 countries in Southeast Asia doing HIV AIDS prevention. And then that turned into emergency hunger issues for United Nations World Food Program. And lastly,
we won't get into the origins of AIDS and who invented it. Fauci.
No, exactly. No, that's a whole nother podcast.
By the way, before you go on, it popped into my head. Mel Gaynor. Mel Gaynor was the drummer in Simple Minds, wasn't he?
Oh, no.
It was
I think he was the original.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. I think
but
he was
anyway,
original.
I'll interrupt you. Don't worry about that. But listen, everybody, like you can see Ken's in this little room, right? And he's there with his laptop on his lap and it's wobbling around. And so
should I show them my room?
You can if you like, but keep it quite close because the audio is kind of going up and down, and I want to get the audio really good.
Okay.
So
okay.
No dancing or anything.
I was in a dance. I was getting the dancing mood with you, Phil.
I know. I'm trying to head it off at the pass.
No, but I must apologize to you, the public. I'm sitting here. I live a very simple life. I have a room that's 4 meters by 4 meters. I don't even have a desk. It's a teak wood bungalow. Maybe to some it would sound horrible. I love it. I have no Rolex watches or no BMW. There's no cars, no motorcycles, no airplanes. We get around by bicycle and walking and horse and buggy still, in fact. And it's just the most simple, beautiful life, and I love it. And I've got my laptop resting on my leg and I'm sitting on my bed. And that's how I have to do podcasts and Skype calls or whatever.
You've always
Zoom
got
calls.
to watch out with Ken and keep the excitement down. I remember even when we were in real world. I mean, how experienced was Ken at being in studios and stuff? Been in the control room for some of the most amazing albums ever made. And he's sitting in real world. We finish a take and Ken would go, "Way, yes." And there's Dave Bottrell going, "Oh, for fuck's sake, Ken. You don't start shouting straight after the take. We're going to have to cut that out. Now fuck off out of the studio." Do you remember
You only
that?
hear that on old. You only hear that on old Led Zeppelin albums. No, leave it on.
Leave it on. Anyway, come on, carry on. Sorry, we got that out of the way.
Where was I?
UN and all those projects and.
Oh yeah. So the last thing I ended up doing was gender-based violence in Papua New Guinea, and then I reached this point where they were flying me back and forth from Africa. I would do a month in Africa. I was working in 10 countries in Africa. And then they'd fly me over to Southeast Asia and I'd do a month there and then back to, and just going back and forth like that. And I finally started reaching this point where I would wake up in the hotel room and for a good 30 to 60 seconds, I couldn't figure out where I was or who I was. I mean, it was a total blank. It was incredible. It's a very weird, strange feeling to have. And I started to think, I think it's time to take a break. You know? And so I stopped and I came down to this beautiful island, and I was walking down the street, the lane, one day, and I looked up at this piece of land sitting there covered in plastic bottles, not looking like it needed some love. And I decided, hey, I've been living in hotel rooms across Southeast Asia and Africa for how many years now? Just I remember sitting poolside in Lagos, Nigeria once with Scotland. Is that in London? No, just kidding. Inside joke. With a guy from Scotland who owned these beautiful boutique hotels across the UK. I think he had like 8 of them. I stayed in 2 of them in London as well. He was very impressed with that. And by the end of our discussion by the pool, he said, "Ken, you know more about hotels than I do, for God's sake." I said, "Well, I live in them, you know." And so I said, it's time to build a hotel. And within 10 days, I had found the local person that I wanted to build with. I'd gotten all my permits and my visas sorted out. I flew back to London, where I was living at the time, and finished up everything there and was back within a month here. It took 3 months to build the place. And within the first 2 weeks, just from word of mouth, I was sold out already. It was amazing. And with people crying, they would check out because they felt so much love staying at my hotel, which is one of the biggest compliments I can get. I say that to other guests, and I go, no pressure. But and that, yes, is what has brought me to my first book today, because which I've just finished in the last week or so, after 4 years of writing, and the whole story started during the second year of lockdown, I became my local girlfriend and her drug addict brother and his old school friend, who was the narcotics chief, set me up for extortion with 120-gram bag of weed, and said, "Give me give them $250,000, or you'll probably spend the rest of your life in prison. That we'll be able to show that you were a known drug dealer here, and we'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison if you don't cough up $250,000. So it's the story of a man, an innocent man, who had spent the majority of his life carrying the torch for human rights, refugee rights, children's rights, health rights. I even worked for Save the Bay and Greenpeace, so the rights of nature, which I love with a passion as well. Animal rights. I used to do Save the Seals when I was 10 years old. I was part of that campaign too. And all of a sudden, there I was, a human rights victim statistic for 5 months on a roller coaster existence of feeling hopeful and then losing hope and then getting back and boom, just over and over again like that, until finally, in the 5th month, 2 angels appeared at my cell door and said, "Come for a meeting. Come out." They open up the cell door. I go and sit with them, and they said, "You're being tricked. You're being scammed, Ken. And tell us what the lawyer that they've appointed. Tell us what he has promised to you." And I sat there and they said, "Yeah, we know all about it because he brags about it all over town." And we're very good friends with the prosecutor. We play golf with him every weekend. We know the judge of your upcoming case, which was going to be happening in 3 weeks' time. And it's all a scam. All the promises he's making to you, all the money he keeps asking you for every few weeks, it's a lie. And if you change now, there's only 3 weeks left, but if you change to us, we feel like we can pretty much guarantee that we're going to get you out. And you will have spent 5 months, but at least you won't be continuing on to a lifetime prison. And they did it. They got me out 3 weeks later.
Wow. But I mean, what was it like? What happened? There was that horrible incident where, there was all the Uzis and stuff pointed at you. And,
Yeah, well,
when what was the episode that started all of this? It must have been terrifying.
Yeah, it was. I was riding with my girlfriend in her car. And so I used to, the first 4 years of our relationship, I would come from my island to her island every 6 weeks, and see her for a long weekend. And that was it. Cause I told her when we first met, I said, "Listen, I don't want to give you any false impressions, but I said, I've come from, obviously another country. Indonesia is quite new to me, and I'm starting a business here. I've got to stay around my business and monitor it. So I can come and see you about every 6 weeks or so for a long weekend, but that's it." And she said, "That's fine." She goes, "I've just come out of a relationship myself." And we did it, and it worked. It worked very well. It kept things quite fresh. In fact, just not living with the person, seeing them every 6 weeks, I would highly recommend. And so then when lockdown came, so the first year of lockdown, we were locked on this island. They stopped all the boats, couldn't get off the island. And then they announced for the second year, okay, we're opening up the boats again, but there still wasn't going to be any tourism. So the hotel was closed for all the hotels for more than 2.5 years. So there was no income coming in that way. So I said, all right, I'll come over and live with you. Let's live together until this all finishes, and then I'll go back home again. And um, she had a very successful garment business selling uniforms and towels and sheets and all that kind of thing to some of the best restaurants and resorts on the island, and that was doing very well. And but it turned out that on the side she was also selling weed, uh, and um, and we were driving in her car, and we were and I said, "Oh, it's Friday. Let's go down to Party Town, and go hear some live music at your friend's place, and I'll book a hotel room, and we'll go back home tomorrow instead." And we went and heard the live music, and then I said, "Let's go to the hotel around 9:30 in the evening." And we pull up into the parking lot, and all of a sudden, boom, we get pounced on by 10 undercover cops, some of them acting like motorcycle taxi drivers, um, all kinds of different outfits. And the next thing I knew, I had Uzi machine gun, pointed into my chest. It was a combination of pistols and Uzi machine guns. Um, and and it's like what you see in the films, the beam of the flashlights, from all of the crisscrossing through her car. And then they come, I'm sitting in the passenger seat, she's in the driver's seat. They come and pull her out, start pulling her out of her seat and going, "What about this kilo?" And I'm sitting there going, kilo of what? And they take her over to the narcotics chief's SUV, undercover SUV, and she's in there talking with him. I have no idea what's going on. I thought the whole thing was a mistake, that it was just a mistaken identity, and they were going to come back and apologize and say, "Sorry, we got the wrong person." And all of a sudden she comes running over to the car, jumps back in her seat, takes me and starts crying and says, "Oh, how will I ever repay you?" I said, "Repay me for what? What are you talking about?" Um, and that was then they took us in separate cars to the police station, and I started the questioning that came with this 120-gram bag of weed, and started separating it into small 10-gram bags. Every time they would do it, they would put it in front of us and go, "Is this yours?" And she would say, "Yes." And I would say, "No, I have nothing to do with this. I don't know what it is." And then they would attach it to this large board, which they then used at the media conference a couple weeks later, which when that happened, they came and picked us up in the jail and took us down to this media conference with more than 100 journalists there from Reuters, you name. I ended up being on more than 200 international news websites around the world as a major drug dealer here, and they used that as a hedge, thinking that this will get him. Now he'll. Oops, sorry. There's the shake. Um, the He'll pay up. He'll pay up now that we've done this. Um, but I refuse to. I've always been a man of principle, and I just couldn't see myself. I mean, for one thing, I didn't have the money. I didn't have $250,000. They thought I had $250,000 because I had been sitting with her brother a few weeks before, having some beers with him and a few friends of his, and a guy called me up on my phone and said he was interested to buy my hotel for $250,000. And her brother didn't speak very good English, and I hung up. I said, "Wow, that guy wants to buy the hotel for $250,000,000," and so he thought I had $250,000,000 in my
Wow.
pocket, and that's
So
why
that's how it
that was the
happened. Uh-huh.
yeah. That's exactly why the first figure that they asked for was $250,000. Or you can just donate your hotel to the nephew of the narcotics police chief. He's in hospitality as well. Yeah,
God.
yeah.
And then what happened? What happened to your girlfriend? She got out. But then what happened to
Um,
you? I mean, what happened from then on?
no, well, the fact is that is um she they ended up when the new angel lawyers, as I refer to them, came in, they were able to split our case because she really did have that weed. I mean that it and the police had been following her for 2 days in her car, waiting for the right moment to pounce on her. Someone apparently um, she told me that the guy that she was getting it from, that when she bought that bag a couple days earlier, that there was a woman there that also there at the time that didn't like her. She thinks that was her theory. Then she changed her opinion and thought that wife of her ex-husband, a wonderful a Japanese woman from Kyoto, Osaka or Kyoto, um, uh, had possibly ratted on. She wasn't quite sure, but she said she felt like somebody had ratted on, and that's why they had been following us. And so by the end, because they had no evidence against me, the judge and the prosecutor um, ruled in my favor. They gave her um, 5 years, but lowered it down to 3 years because of COVID. They had decided to give people lesser sentences because of COVID, and they said that I was. They had to come up with something to be an excuse of why I just spent 5 months in jail, an innocent man. But here you're guilty until proven innocent. It's not the other way around. And so the judge said, "You are," and this is quite interesting in my book as well. I think it's going to be great when the film comes out too. Because of COVID, we had to do Zoom court trials. The whole thing was done by Zoom, and and so being in a country that's not a known for its amazing technology, that kind of thing. It meant that there was all kinds of funny things happening with the Zoom during testimonies and stuff, right up to the point where when the judge was ready to give my sentencing, um, the whole thing broke down, and we had to like reboot and start. It was like the judge froze, on the Zoom with my sentence. Right, like, I was like, "Oh my god, what?"
Oh, it must be crazy. I mean,
But
I'm sitting here half terrified because the audio keeps going up and down. So Eris, my friend who does the sound, I'm so sorry, Eris, at this point, because I know he's going to have to sort some things out here because it kind of dips every now and again. I'm going, no, 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 don't.
is this the first podcast you've done from a developing country?
No, actually, I do.
Uh,
Well,
uh,
no, India is not a developing country anymore, really, is
no.
it? But
Oh
I
gosh.
did a great one with a friend there and had a perfect
Mm.
audio. In fact, the worst audio I got was from Eris. We did a little episode with
Oh,
him. I'm doing these little sections of
yeah.
useless anecdotes, as I call them, for people who've healed.
Uh-huh.
And Eris
Yeah.
is one, and we had more trouble with that with his Zoom, well, his Wi-Fi
Yeah.
than anybody else. But
Mm.
but anyway,
Mm.
sorry, I don't want to get off subject. But
Yeah.
this just this the whole tale. I mean, some of the things that you've told me and some of the things I've heard from these little clips, paint a picture of what it's like in this place, and all these guards seem horrendously sadistic, like psychopaths. And
Yeah,
I mean, God,
yeah,
what a nightmare.
yeah. No, the guards were horrible, and again, because of the word that had been passed down to them, they were certain that I was a huge drug dealer that had come to their land to take advantage of their people and make money, off selling drugs to them. And again, I was just totally guilty in their eyes. I was in a cell with that usually had 15 other people. What they do is they put you in jail for 5 months, and then you have your court hearing, and that's when it's determined if you're going to go to the prison, which is in a lot of ways even worse. But if you're a local, a lot of them look forward to it because they think the food is better there. um, um, but so there was only two cells. There was a men's cell and a women's cell. But my girlfriend was in the cell next to me with 15 women. And but for example, they wouldn't let me. There's no windows or anything. It's just fluorescent light 24/7, and CCTV to make sure that you don't hang yourself or something like that. And they twice a week they let you go down. The whole group goes downstairs into the jail yard, where you get to walk in the sunshine for about an hour. Otherwise, you can walk in the hallway. You can do chores. You can help to mop the floor, or things like that. But they wouldn't. I was the only one that they wouldn't let out. For 3 weeks, they let all the locals go out, but they wouldn't even let me leave the jail cell. So on the day of week 3, when they finally came over and said, "Okay, you can't go outside, but you can go over there to the office window and look out the window for a little while." um, and I got over to that window, and it was just like, whoa. I mean, I'd never been that long without seeing the sun or seeing nature. I've saved a little the part I wrote in the book. I've never read that one to you, but I could read that one if you want. That describes what that was like to go for 3 weeks with no sunlight.
Go for
Jack
it.
Cruz would have hated it.
No, yeah, Jack Cruz would have hated it. Yes. Yeah. Have you got that? Have you got that bit to hand then?
Yeah.
Read that.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I've got it here. Okay. So today is my first day out of the cell after almost 3 weeks of being locked in a dry, hot, windowless room, breathing in the damp, metallic stench. The clank of huge, outdated cell door keys echoes in the hall as they open my cell door and allow Isabel, my girlfriend, to walk me over to a window in the nearby guard's office. And then the world, God, the world, blinking like a newborn, the golden morning sun coming in through the window permeates my entire body. In the distance, I can see the sun spilling off the palm and coconut trees, turning them into trembling veils of emerald. Coconut trees sway in a slow, hypnotic dance, appearing like they are whispering secrets in the wind. The birds, yes, real living birds, that I love so much seemed to be visiting me at the window and singing, "Welcome back, Ken." I could almost taste the salt, sweet air, feel the warmth on my skin, like a hand reaching into the window and saying, "Remember this. Remember that you still are a part of this earth." Never in my 62 years had I been that long without seeing nature. Isabel squeezes herself into the space between my chest and the window. She watches my face, the way my throat moves, the way my fingers curl against the window sill, as if I could claw my way into that big, beautiful sky. And then her breath stops. And then she breaks down. She struggles to maneuver between me and the window to hug me. I feel her tears warm against my collarbone. "I'm so sorry, Michael. How can I repay you?" Her voice was raw, stripped bare. For a heartbeat of a moment, I let myself sink into her. I smell her hair again. I feel the way her body fits against mine like a missing piece. Above us, a bird lands on the wire, the same kind that Isabel used to say brings good luck in her village. It tilts its head, watching us, then takes flight. The ache in my chest swells like a wave threatening to crash against the rocks, but then I swallow it. Because in this place, tears are currency, and I refuse to let them take that from me too. The guards drag us back to our cells, laughing at us all the way. But I'm unsure about Isabel. Was that display of emotion rehearsal also? I have now seen how good she is at that kind of thing.
Wow. You know what? I've heard a few of these clips, and I said to Ken the other day, are we both going to get through this without crying?
That was a tough one.
Because it's like, there might be a tougher one coming up if you're willing to read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which one did you play in the intro?
I haven't. Here we are now. I'm going to choose it. I'm here. We're on the podcast now. And I'm here.
You had said
no. I'm going to take a clip of us doing this now, and so I'm just noted down. Here we are, 42 minutes, and there's one that I can have a look at, and we'll take a clip. So, we'll see what happens. We haven't even done that bit yet, but so you're stuck in this cell. I mean, it's bad enough, but now what we know about life.
I was starting to describe that. Let me just so there's no beds, like you often see in your favorite jail prison movies. We all sleep on, there's wooden slats against the wall that are raised up about a meter, and so that you can put some of your belongings underneath you. But we sleep on those wood slats, of which for the first week, that's all I just slept on wood. And then by the second week, friends brought me my yoga mat, and I was able to put my yoga mat over the wooden slats, and they brought me a pillow, so I didn't have to use a couple of T-shirts as a pillow. Strangely enough, that wasn't that difficult. I like a good firm mattress. So that wasn't that difficult for me, that part. Then there was one door that led into the toilet, which was a hole in the ground. And then there's a big bucket you have to keep filling up this bucket of water. And the place where they sent me was up at the base of the mountain. So they would go every morning and get the water from the river, the mountains. And you didn't need coffee in the morning once you took a shower with that water. Woke you right up. And but that was it. Yeah, of which once again I was used to that, because when I was in Tajikistan, doing my first UN gig out of the music business, that's how we took our showers as well, with a bucket of water. Except for at that place, there was a little thing that we had to stick in it and warm up the water. So I had luxury in Tajikistan. So yeah, very basic. And as I told you, that horrible, fluorescent light, just 24/7. They never turned it off, which who knows what that does to us. But again, we should probably do a joint podcast with Jack.
Sure. Well, I mean,
He
you
can
know,
comment on.
if anyone's listening to this and you think of battery chickens, horrendous
Yes.
conditions, and they put these lights on 24/7 and they just die. They get
Yeah.
sick. They lay round the clock. It destroys their hormones. Like, but
Yeah.
for once, this isn't a health podcast, but I mean, if there's a way to destroy your health, it's leaving the lights on that much. Plus, you're that stressed. But I mean, God, horrific, absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
So then, I just
And then on top of that,
go on.
Well, yeah. It says the internet connection is unstable. Sorry, Phil. How's it working for you? Is it all right?
Yeah, it's all right. I can hear you. It's just a little bit of glitch here and there, but hey, it's shonky Wi-Fi. That's what we got.
Yeah. So, combine that with the fact that they wouldn't let me exercise. Before I went into jail, I was on this kick where I was walking 10,000 steps a day. I was playing a lot of golf. I used to be a caddy when I was in high school, and when the lockdown happened, I said, I got to take up golf, for God's sakes, and there was this great football field right near my girlfriend's house, and I would go there every morning and practice my iron shots and count my step. I'd do 5,000 steps in my morning golf and another 5,000 my afternoon golf in that field. And the locals I was the only white person in the village. They loved coming up and talking to me, and the little kids running after the balls and bringing them back to me and stuff like that. It was quite a scene. But I was in just great shape, and all of a sudden, and I had, and still do, type 2 diabetes, as you know. So that was very, I was trying to ward off neuropathy in my feet and legs, and it was working great, getting all that stimulation. And then really quickly, with them just keeping me in that cell, my feet started getting into a dire situation. So I actually ended up, this was quite a blessing. I ended up spending 5 weeks of my 5 months in hospital, because there's a famous Hollywood film producer who's interested in my story at the moment, who describes my story as Midnight Express meets One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest meets Papillon. And the part of getting my way into hospital, was kind of a combination of Jack Nicholson and Papillon combined. Say, the first time I went to hospital, they had let they finally let another white person into the cell with me. Everyone else had been locals. Most of them arrested for smoking crystal meth, and then he was arrested with 96 grams of cocaine. He was from Rome, Italy, and he had been staying at another jail in another part of town, but they had him come on to the media conference that day as well. And then they decided, oh, we're going to send him back to the jail where Ken is as well. They'll be together up there. And as we're in the black police van, jail prison van, taking us back to the jail, we're sitting there, the sirens going, and I start talking to him, and I said, "So you're from Rome?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I used to work for the UN in Rome. I know Rome very well." And we started talking. We used to go to the same restaurants, and all kinds of things like that. And we ended up getting along famously. He was in his 30s. His father was dying of cancer at the time. And I think I started with, I was a bit of like a father figure for him. I mean, he loved me instantly. And he was a very creative guy. He reminded me of the creativity I had. I was in my 30s, and I was a bit irritated with myself at that time because I always felt like COVID had turned me into a bloody bore. It made me more interested in drinking beer than being creative. And I was quite irritated with myself. And all of a sudden to have this guy in the cell with me, we just started coming up with ideas about new businesses to make and things to do for the environment. And he had been in and out of rehab and jail many times in his life. I mean, his father was one of the most wealthy industrialists in Rome, and yet he grew up covered in muscles and tattoos because he had dyslexia, and the other kids in school used to make fun of him when he would be asked to read in the class, and so he felt like his only recourse was to I got to learn how to beat the shit out of these people. So I mean, he comes from one of the best families in Rome, but he looks like he's from some gang in Napoli. It's amazing.
Have you got that bit when he turns up there in the book?
I've got it in the book, and I've given you. I forgot to send that one to me to read.
No,
but
yeah,
you
yeah.
got it.
I've got the clip, but have you got it there to
Yeah.
read? Because that's brilliant.
No, because I'd have to open up on my laptop the book and find it.
Okay,
And
all right.
yeah,
Cool.
it'd be dead air. But it's if you want to, like you were talking about, to play a part for the intro, you have the recording of it in either in your messenger. Yeah, it's in your messenger, I think, of that first part when he enters on the first day when he enters, and it's when he orders the pizza. Remember that he goes to the cell door and he starts banging. He says in a strong Italian accent, he's telling the guards, come and see me. I need to talk to you. And he said, give me my phone. Somehow his lawyer had worked out some kind of deal when he first got in that he could have his phone off. And he gets his phone. He says, Ken, what do you say? Let's order some pizza. And I said, yes, all around. Let's get pizza for both cells, for God's sake. and it just turns into a total scene from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's incredible. But so we became very tight. And then there was this one day, twice a week, we would have visitors' day. And my girlfriend's family had come, and they just kind of open up the door of both cells. You can walk back and forth in the hallway between here. You see all these families sitting on the floor in the hallway, and you sit and join them cross-legged on the floor. Very interesting cultural incarceration difference, compared to UK or America. And so I was walking back and forth to the cell, and from her family, we'd go past that office room where I love to go to the window, as I was talking about before, to see the birds. And I look in, and he's sitting there with two of the biggest guards. That one that hated me the most, Sergeant Costas, that you know about very well already, and another one, and I could see they're getting him pissed on the local moonshine. I think I've been to 76 countries now around the world. I think every country's got their own local moonshine, um, which usually is made from some form of local gasoline. They says, "Oh no, it's not." But and I can just every time I look in there, I can see he's getting pissed. I can tell. So they go, "Okay, everybody back in the room. Visiting hours are over," and um, he comes into the cell and he turns to one of the guys in the cell and he goes over. He says, "You've been ratting me about my phone, haven't you?" Yeah. And he just gives him a right to the chest, and it was so strong sounding that the girls, the women in the cell next door could hear it. They start screaming, "What's going on?" And the guards come running in. The two guards that had been getting them pissed on the alcohol on the local moonshine, and they nail him up against the wall, and they hit him twice in the chest, and then he puts his hands in the air and he said, "Just let me sleep, let me go to sleep." And they went, "Okay, all right." So he lies down on the floor and goes to sleep. And I go over to the cell door and say to my girlfriend, who's standing at her, so I said, "Listen, when he wakes up from this stuff, he's going to be worse than he is right now. I guarantee you. He's going to have a hangover like you can't imagine. And I'm telling you, you should speak to the guards now and tell them to take him downstairs. There was a solitary room downstairs. Let him go down there and work off his hangover. So he's just not going to." No, no, she was always she was when she spent the 5 months in jail with me. She was very disagreeable for the whole time. It was almost like it was an act for the other local girls, in the cell. I couldn't quite figure it out, or maybe it had always been an act with me, the whole time we were together. I'm still not quite sure about it. And so anyhow, no, she said, "Ken, you don't know what you're talking about." He wakes up and he goes berserk. And he goes to the cell door. He starts yelling for the guards. He said, "I want out of here. There's too many of us in here. I feel claustrophobic. I want you to take me to another jail. Take me to the prison. I don't care where you take me to, but get me out of here." And he's yelling, and then guards, like four of them, come to the door and they start taunting him. It was like they were watching an animal in the zoo. They were making faces at him and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there watching from off to the side and going, "Geez, these guys, they don't know anything about this uh, about how to treat someone who's in jail in this kind of condition, for God's sake." So maybe they don't care, I guess. But all of a sudden, he pulls up a stool up to there's a little plastic stool, pulls it up to the cell door, takes this long beach towel that he used to sleep on, starts tying it around the cell door, wraps it around his neck, and goes and stands on the stool getting ready to hang himself. So I all of a sudden in my head, I said, "I got to stop this." And I got to fake a heart attack. But it was all going so fast because I knew also if I faked the heart attack and they take me to the hospital and then go, "No, there's nothing wrong with this guy," they beat the shit out of me when I got back. I very quickly what I was going to do. And I did it. I went into fake heart attack mode. And then he looks over at me with just fear in his face. And at that time, two other cellmates run over to hold him, and he's fine with it. He helps undo himself to come over. Come on, help Ken. I was able to distract all the attention over onto me, and they took me to the hospital. But I saved his life by doing that, which I was very, very happy about. But I was wondering all the way to the hospital if I'd my life, even more than it had been ruined already. But I got down there, and thank goodness they asked me all these. They didn't ask me, what do you feel like? They asked me, is this doing this? Is that doing it? And I just kept saying yes to all of them. And they were going, oh, yeah, we've got a problem. And they actually took me up to intensive coronary care unit. And I spent 24 hours in ICCU. I thought, my God, I did a better acting job than I thought. I could win the Academy Award for this. Turned out I actually did have heart problems. And so they kept me in the, and my blood pressure had gone up through the roof since being in jail. My blood sugar had gone up as well because they were feeding me rice every day, for every meal. And so I spent a week. I had 5 doctors. After the met a wonderful, finally there was a nurse. Again, all the doctors and nurses treated me guilty until proven. I mean, can you imagine the scene when you arrive at a hospital? There's all these people in queue out front because they think they have COVID, so they're coming for their tests and all that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, this white guy with 2 guys in military uniform, both with Uzis, escort me into I get to go to the front of the queue. That's great. With Uzis, and take me to the waiting emergency room. They stood at the door of ICCU the whole time I was there. They wanted to come in to ICCU, but the doctors wouldn't let them in. And then they sent me, okay, we're sent on after the first 24 hours. I had befriended this nurse, and I said to her, listen, I think I could leave ICCU. I feel much better. And she said, all right, I think we can move you to a VIP room that's down on the floor below. So they put me in this VIP room, which I ended up having the whole time, all the other 4 weeks as well. Had a terrace, had a window looking out into a parking lot. My God, that was luxury for me. I've never enjoyed looking at a parking lot so much in my life after being in a room with no windows and fluorescent light the whole time. But I had 1 Uzi guard at the door of my room, 1 out on my terrace, and 1 on my sofa, because it was the VIP room had a sofa as well. And when we first entered that room, they tried to, I went in, they put me on the bed, and I said, to the nurse, can you turn off the light, please? And they went, oh, no, you keep the light on. And then they pull out handcuffs, and they said, and we handcuff you to the bed. And I said, no. I said, I'm here to recuperate. I mean, don't make this like jail, because I'm not going to recuperate. Okay? And then I stood up, my hospital gown on. I turned around to them, opened up my hospital gown, showing my total backside, and said, do you really think like this and in my flip-flops and I'm going to jump off the 3rd floor terrace and try and escape from here? And they all kind of looked at each other. Yeah, yes, I guess he's right about that. And they said, okay, no handcuffs, turn the lights on. Yeah. And later, the next day, the young guard who was staying on my couch, he said, Ken, when you get out, he says, I want us to go and have some beers together. I like the way you operate. You told those guys what to do, for God's sakes, and I like that. In fact, they ended up calling me James Bond later on, because they were convinced that I was arranging a helicopter to come pick me up either from jail or from the hospital. But I think that is a compliment. You know, they called the Italian guy Rocky. I'd much rather be James Bond than Rocky. uh, so um, anyhow, that saved that saved me, and it saved my Italian friend. Um, they did end up moving him to another hospital, and then we ended up joining back together again at a later point when I returned from, I think, hospital trip number 3. But I was when I was in during that first week, I told the doctors, I said, listen, they're not. There was one especially who, as I said before, they treated me like I was guilty again. But there was one doctor who was particularly good to me. And I said, they're not letting me walk. They're not letting me outside. They let the others out, but they're not letting me out. And I said, you see, I've got the diabetes. I've got the neuropathy in my feet and legs. I need the sunshine. I need the exercise. Can you write them a note, that says, Ken needs to walk. We need for you to start letting them 2 times a day, which was more than any of the other inmates. They were getting twice a week for 1 hour. He needs to go outside in the morning and the afternoon and walk for an hour every day. And on top of that, also, you can't be giving him this white rice diet every day. He says he knows a very good restaurant nearby that he could get to deliver. And that was my papillon song. I was able to get this great restaurant to start delivering to me twice a week. But that was what led to the story that I've told you about, where I came back. When they brought me back to jail. I showed the note to the guard who was the head guard for the whole jail. As I told you earlier, I called him Chief Wanker because I couldn't pronounce his name and it sounded like wank to me. So I just started calling him, okay, Chief Wanker, no problem, whatever you And my girlfriend was like, don't call him wanker, because she knew what a wanker was. But his English was so bad, he had no idea what I was talking about when I would call him Chief Wanker. I even asked him, you know what a wanker is? But he didn't know what I was saying, but I asked him. So I got a lot of pleasure out of calling the chief guard Chief Wanker. Anyhow, I showed the note to Wank, and and he goes, okay, that's cool. And then that night, Sergeant Costas, who's the one who just hates me to a passion, can't stand me. He's my nemesis. He sees the note when he comes on duty, because I had tacked it up. Wanker had to go away for a week to another jail, so I tacked it up next to the guard desk there in the hallway. And when Sergeant Costas saw this thing tacked to the wall, he said, "Ooh, who do you think you are putting this up on the wall? I will be the person who decides if you're going to be walking, not some quack, from a hospital." I mean, his veins were bulging. I mean, he was. I thought he was going to kill me. I thought at that point he was going to kill me. And he's known, the week before I got there, we have the jail yard that we have isn't very high security. There's actually an open gate right onto the road without even a gate over. You can go in and out of it. And a guy tried to run out, local, while they were doing the jail yard exercise, tried to run out one day, and he nailed him with his Uzi, knocked his left knee right off. That's like, so he loves doing that kind of thing. He's got a very violent streak. And and that was the night that I had that dream. I mean, and woke up the next morning going, "Gosh, Ken, what is happening to you? That you dream something like that? Is the hate in your blood so severe that you think those types of thoughts? I never in my whole life come anywhere close to them, and that was another part. It was just such a culture shock for me. Not even just in the culture thing, the fact of being um, any kind of connection with jail or prison, and it just I went through post traumatic stress when I
Okay, another little glitch in Ken's comedy Wi-Fi, but we had a little chat, and I reminded him that he's got two great clips that really come perfectly after what he's just said about this Costas guy. And have a listen to these. Go on, Ken. Check it. Check this out, everyone. I'm going to mute now so that we get really good sound on this. Go on.
okay. So we'll do two back-to-back readings here. The first one is called My Friends Birds. Once every week, I skip the jail yard exercise and escape by myself to the narrow office window on the top floor. And for a few stolen moments, I'm not a prisoner. The world beyond the razor wire is alive, vibrant, untamed, free. The tropical sun glistens on the broad leaves of coconut and banana trees. Dogs tumble in the dirt, chasing nothing but joy. Butterflies flicker like scattered pieces of sunlight. But it's the birds that save me. Yeah, the same four of them every time, perched on the telephone wire between the leaning poles. They sing as if their throats might burst with the sheer joy of sound, trilling, warbling, calling to each other in a language of freedom. I swear they know I'm watching. I swear they sing for me, my own private concert, my tiny rebellion against the silence of cages. Then gunfire, rapid, brutal cracks shatter the air. One bird jerks, its wings flaring uselessly as it tumbles. Then another, and another. The last one tries to flee, but the bullet finds it mid-flight and it spirals down like a broken toy. Silence. I turn, numb, and there he is, my nemesis, the guard who hates me most, Sergeant Costas, lowering his smoking Uzi. He meets my eyes, his lips curl in a wet yellow smile. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't have to. The message is clear. Nothing beautiful lives here. Nothing is yours, not even the birds. I press my forehead against the glass, my breath fogging it white. Somewhere, far beyond the walls, the dogs still play. The butterflies still dance. But the wire is empty now, and the songs are gone.
Powerful stuff, man. I'm looking down here because I'm noting it down. Rough time of that because I want to clip bits out. Amazing. Such beautiful language, man. But yeah. And
thank you.
What comes after that?
So after that is the dream that I have about this wonderful Sergeant Costas. It's called The Dream. The night air is thick with the stench of sweat and rusted metal. I lie on my mat, the doctor's crumpled letter still burning in my pocket. Sergeant Costas's voice echoes in my skull. I decide when you walk, not some shit-stained quack. His spittle spraying my face like hot grease. Then, through the haze of half sleep, I hear it, his laughter. Costas is leaning against the bars of my cell, his back to me, bragging to a pair of guards about how he made the new inmate piss himself earlier. His spare tire presses against the steel, his uniform damp under the armpits. The Uzi hangs loose in his grip, the barrel scraping the floor. I move without sound. The chicken wire is cold in my hands, rusted, sharp, coiled like a serpent under my mat. I've saved it for weeks, fraying the edges against concrete until they could peel skin. I slip forward, bare feet on concrete. The other prisoners don't stir. They're ghosts tonight. Costas wheezes out another joke, slapping his thigh. His neck is pink and glistening, the veins bulging like worms under the skin. I lunge. The wire loops around his throat before he can turn. A guttural choke, his hands fly up, but I yank back, the metal teeth biting deep. His Adam's apple jerks like a hooked fish. The Uzi clatters to the floor. He bucks, elbows slamming the bars, but I tighten the noose, twisting. His face purples, his tongue swells, pushing past his lips. One of the guards stares, frozen. I lock eyes with him. Say something. Go ahead. But he just backs away, vanishing into shadow. Costas's legs kick useless. His fingers claw at the wire, slicing open his own flesh. Blood streams down his uniform, black in the dim light. Then a gasp. Not his. Mine. I wake up drenched, fists clenched in the thin prison blanket. The cell is silent. No body, no blood. Outside, the first hint of dawn bleeds through. Somewhere, far off, a guard coughs. Not Costas. Not yet.
Oh,
Phew. Please forgive me.
well, how can you help it? I mean, just that's what happens under that kind of stress. You're going to have dreams like that, and you know, I've had little fantasies of even Gates and Fauci. It's like Detta says. My missus. She is so chilled, as you know. She's so chilled.
Yeah.
And yet she said to me at the sort of halfway through all that nonsense, she said, "I'd like to be alone in a room with Gates and Fauci and a pair of pliers."
Wow. Oh, God, that gave me goosebumps too. Whoa.
Yeah, and I thought, it takes a lot to push her to think anything like that, but we do, don't we? When there's just you're confronted with that kind of psychopathy, that kind of evil. God, I mean, I just can't imagine it. I can't imagine it. I could just imagine me appearing in a uniform with an Uzi clipped on and people in cells. You just go, "Oh, fuck off!" Let's let them out. Let's all go for a steak. Let's all stop it. What the hell? It's amazing, isn't it? What people do to each other.
Well, that's one of the major themes of the book. Obviously I had discovered that through my work around the world. I was seeing, a lot of that, of what people are capable of to do to other human beings, often for money, for wealth, and And I think, and there I was seeing it just, from a front row seat, for God's sakes. I had never seen it so clearly as I was seeing it now in my extortion scenario. But interestingly enough, everything that was happening out in the world at the same time as that, and the desire for wealth, and what was happening to the world, and a desire for wealth and other things. So it was kind of all crashing down, in a huge tsunami on me. you know. But in fact, as I was saying when we got cut off, I unexpectedly, realized that I had post-traumatic stress when I got out. I had it for a few months. I, the scene where I'm in jail, and the thing that's most comforting for me is to just imagine sitting on a couch with my mother on one side, my father on the other side, my arms around both of them, and us just sitting there watching old.
I got a lump in my throat just thinking about that one. You haven't got it, have you?
I have that. Yeah.
Can you get through that one?
That I'll try. I'll try my best.
Yeah.
But that's when I was going through the post-traumatic stress. I kept still getting that. I had, because then, as you know, I'd lost my mother by that time as well, which we have that one too. But and so I just, that kept replaying in my head, even when I was out of jail, that the thing that would comfort me the most right now would be to sit with my mother and father, who I loved so much and who loved me so much, and just sit there and watch Humphrey Bogart films and shit like that. Yeah.
Go for it.
Right. So, yeah. So this is that part. This is called Missing Mom, Dad, and Humphrey. There are moments in captivity when the loneliness doesn't just creep in, it crushes like a boot heel on your sternum, pressing until you're sure your ribs will splinter. Tonight, it's not the fluorescent buzz or the guard's laughter that undoes me. It's the memory of a couch. Not just any couch, a relic, a sagging, sunken thing from around the 1950s. Its springs groaning like old men, the fabric worn shining in the spots where we'd carved our lives into it. Mom was on my left, Dad on the right, me wedged between them like the filling in some absurd loving sandwich, my arms around the shoulders of each one of them. I pictured us watching old black and white movies. Casablanca, Some Like It Hot. The flickering light from the old cumbersome 21-inch RCA console with the fake furniture-like cabinet painting their faces grayscale. I could hear Dad snorting at the punchlines that he'd heard 100 times before, and Mom humming along to the soundtrack until it becomes too irresistible, and Dad and I join in. Dad providing his rich bass harmony, and me some more high tenor notes. I could smell it all. The starch on Dad's shirt, the Guerlain perfume on Mom's wrists, the way their warmth seeped into my sides, as if they could fuse us into one single unbreakable thing. Now I lie on my yoga mat, spread across the jail's wooden slats, arms curled around nothing, trying my best to summon that warmth we used to experience. But memory is a bastard. It gives you just enough to taste what you've lost. I close my eyes. Humphrey Bogart says, "Here's looking at you, kid." Dad chuckles. Mom sighs. The couch creaks. And for 3 seconds, I'm there. And the guard's flashlight slices through the dark. And I'm back in hell. Alone. Always alone. Yeah.
Wow.
Almost didn't make it.
I didn't. Oh, God. Yeah, man. So just, I can imagine. I mean, the worst I've been through is my first 3 weeks at boarding school, but that was traumatic enough. And Mighty Goodson, who has been on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, she took me back to that point, when I was really sick around 2022 again, and took me through and unwound that memory of kids sort of crying themselves to sleep and
I've heard horrible stories about
and missing their parents. I mean, you go there at like 8 years old and they put you in this dormitory and then they don't let you out for 3 weeks because the other kids get to go out every week at least to see their parents, but they have to get you used to it. So they don't let you see your parents for 3 weeks. And it was like, oh, it's nothing compared to that. But when you're 8, I didn't realize how much that had stuck with me, that memory of the kids just sort of crying and stuff. But at least I knew when I was going to get out. I wasn't, I wasn't on the end of an Uzi. But fuck, man, I mean, just powerful stuff, and the emotional stuff of thinking about parents and just sort of love and even a bit of sunlight on the outside it just chokes me out. Along with your turn of phrase, of course. If that was written badly, you wouldn't get such a lump in your throat,
Yeah, I mean, I think having such a wonderful upbringing, such love and care and support from my parents, like I was telling you earlier, from my parents, from my brothers and sisters. I never got bullied or anything. In school, I never got bullied. My teachers were even supportive of me, of new ideas I would get and stuff. And all that made jail more difficult, actually, because I think everybody else that I was in jail with had never experienced anything like that in their upbringing. Probably the most bonding and camaraderie that they were getting was with those other crystal meth smokers. They loved it. They sat and played card games, dominoes, and stuff like that all day. They were, I think they prefer it. You often do hear that, don't you? From even UK and American incarceration stories that they try and get back in as soon as they can, because they realize that they have more of a feeling of belonging, when they get back into jail or prison. And for me, it was total opposite. I was innocent one, experiencing the total opposite. Even my girlfriend, but within the first 24 hours, she was in like Flint. I could hear her from the other cell, just laughing her head off and just enjoying it to the T.
So, like we're sort of on about an hour and a half now, but I want to say, well, get an idea of what this left you with, because I don't want it we could go through the whole story and that would be great, but people need to get the book, right? And just,
by the way, we should tell people that my plan actually on this is, and people say it's ass backwards and I don't care. I think I learned this from working in the music business. Earlier you were saying if there's anyone out there who knows a publisher. I'm actually more interested in film, or TV people
Yeah.
at the moment. I've got some podcasts, like true crime podcast people interested as well. I want this thing to come out in podcast, and then film, and I'm going to do publish the book last. In fact.
Cool. Well, we'll do that.
Uh,
We'll repeat that again in the summary at the end. But
yeah.
what
Okay.
what
Mm.
what happened? When you got out. Let's skip to when you got out, and like what were you left with? How much did they rob you? This is one of the worst things, because you went in there with a great
Mm.
resort and you
Yeah.
came out with what?
With
These
nothing.
bastards.
I came out owing money to people. Um, I actually came down here with $500,000 pounds to my name, and left jail owing um, around $20,000 to people who I have a daughter who lives in London. She was 30 years old at the time, and she started this amazing "Let's Help Ken Get Out of Jail" campaign. Um, Started contacting my friends on Facebook and telling them out of the blue, "You don't know me. I'm Ken's doctor." And she explained the story of what had happened. And she said they started coming back to her with these amazing stories. And she realized, oh God, that I've never even asked him about any of this. I've never asked him about his life and music business. He's been traveling the world, doing social development work, helping people around the world. And I've never asked him about any of that, you know? She came down and visited me at my hotel, in the idyllic tropical island. So she knew a bit about my hotelier existence. But she started finding out about me through these people that said, "Ken in jail as a drug dealer? What?" "Yes, how much do you want?" Uh, and and she was able to raise the money that not only I was able to use for those final lawyers, because they had they gave me not a court appointed lawyer, they gave me a corrupt narcotics chief appointed lawyer. It was an old friend of his and my girlfriend's brother. They came from the same village, and he gives kickbacks to the narcotics chief of whatever he can get out of each person. Um, and so he bled me like a turnip. He kept coming to me every week or a couple of weeks and saying, "Listen, I can get you this. I can get you into the hotel of your choice on the beach. You don't have to spend the full 5 months in the jail. We can get you in house arrest. And just give me $20,000 more, and I'll sort that out. And you can spend, And it was just one promise after another like that, and I was so vulnerable, you know. So I gave them time. They never got the $250,000 that they were that they wanted to get, but they still got a huge amount off of me. And at the time it was because the hotel had been closed, and that was my the only way. I mean, the only promise I could make to people is that we'll try and sell the hotel and pay back people that way. But I've had to give away 60% of the hotel to the lawyer now for legal fees, and so I make, in a good month right now, I make 600 dollars during the high season, for the whole, and for most of the months, which we've been going through, low season, nothing. I don't get paid anything, for God's sakes. Um, and um, And so I haven't been able to reimburse any of those people. And for me, this is going to be the project that permits me to finally. I hate owing people money, for one thing. I've always had people have always said that to me since I was in high. You hate owing people money, don't you, Ken? I said, yes, I do. Um, and I have such a soft spot in my heart for them as well, that they did what they did. You know, they rallied around me like that. I mean, a lot of people that I hadn't just spoken to in years, for God's sakes, but they remembered something I did for them, you know, and it you know, kind of made you believe in quite nicely in karma. uh, that I was getting some repay. It was nice.
Mm.
But I don't care. I still want to pay it back to them. I feel so indebted to them that I the first thing when I get the money from the film project or whatever it's going to be, the first thing is going to be to pay back all those people.
Mm. And you know, I've seen Ken pull sort of magic out of nothing. And he if anybody can do it, he can. And I was saying to you the other day, Ken, that you know, you've got the three things. You've got the content, the story, you've got the writing ability, and also you've got that voice for the audiobook as well when it comes. And with your contacts, I'm sure you can get this film out. But I can't wait to see it. I'm sure it's going to happen because you're one of these people that definitely makes things happen. And just incredible to hear this story. And I don't know, what should we finish on? Because should we leave this? Do you think you can do your mum one?
Let's finish with that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. We should finish with that one.
So we're probably going to be really choked up, both of us, to this one, but this is amazing. So yeah. I mean, you know, let me say one quick thing about this, the inhumanity of keeping families apart. And even during the whole COVID nonsense, you know, people not being able to go and see their parents, their relatives in these care homes where they were, you know, knocking them off with their horrible chemicals. And then you had to go through this while you were in jail.
Yeah.
So check this out.
So, my mother was 99 years old. She was a yoga teacher. She was from France, as they called her, and my father called her a war trophy from World War II. Probably not woke or whatever to say that anymore. But yeah, they met at a U.S. dance, a USO dance in Nice, France. And she was a yoga teacher right up through 95 years old. And I flew out from London, I forget what year it was, and bought her a laptop and spent a whole month with her showing her how to use a laptop. This was how she was like 85. It was. Showed her Facebook, showed her Skype, and she just loved the idea that because I was always all around the world, you know, that she could talk to me and see me on Skype. I mean, she was just she looked so forward. We had weekly Skype calls because of that, because I could see how much she loved them. And I did as well. Yeah, we got along great. And then I get into jail, and they take my phone, and they keep it downstairs at the guard desk. They won't let me have access to it. So I'm sitting there going, "Jeez, what's mom thinking?" You know, it's been at that point, I think it's been 8 weeks, and me not making any, because I always started the call as well. So this one's called The Last Call. For weeks, I had lied to myself. She won't notice that I haven't called her. At 99, time blurs anyway. But mothers, Even those clinging to life by the thinnest thread always notice. What could I do? The guards were keeping my phone downstairs and I had no access to it. Our customary weekly Skype calls had become impossible. So when the guard came sprinting up the stairs, his boots pounding like a hammer on my ribs, I knew before he spoke. No one got phone privileges here, not unless the world was ending. Cut, she gasped, shoving the device through the bars. Urgent, it's your mother. A birthday call, of course. Even as her mind unraveled, even when she forgot my face in photos last Christmas, some stubborn part of her held on to this. It's my son's special day. My throat tightened. What lie would I spin about my silence to her? That my phone broke? That I'd been traveling somewhere remote with no signal? Then the phone screen flickered to life. Her face was a ghost of itself. Papery skin stretched over bone, lips tinged blue, propped upright by pillows that swallowed her frail frame. She looked like a child's drawing of a queen too weary for her crown. A nurse hovered behind her, eyes glistening. Ken, the nurse whispered. She's been unresponsive for hours. But when I said your name, she insisted we call you. The air left my lungs. All the clever excuses, all the brave facades crumbled. There was only her labored breathing, the rhythmic beep of machines, and the crushing weight of everything I couldn't say. I'm in jail. I couldn't say that. I failed. I can't say that. I'm so scared. No, can't say that. 15 minutes. That's how long I just stared at her, saying nothing, memorizing the slope of her nose. She's still elegant even now, the way her silver hair fanned across the pillow like spilled moonlight. Every second dripped with the cruel irony. I, the world traveler, was caged. She, who'd outlived wars and heartbreaks, was finally out of time. Tears burned behind my eyes, acidic and insistent, but I clenched my jaw. If these were her last moments, she wouldn't see me broken. She'd seen enough of that in '08 when the divorce shattered me. In '15 when malaria nearly killed me in Cape Verde. This time I'd be strong. Mom, I rasped, the words clawing up my throat. I love you. Pause. Then her hand twitched. Just a flutter, really, but the nurse gasped. She heard you, she murmured, cradling my mother's fingers. Oh, Ken, she squeezed my... Then the monitor flatlined. One long, endless tone. The nurse's mouth kept moving, but I heard nothing. Not the guards arguing down the hall. Not my cellmate's nervous shuffling behind me. Just the silence where her breath should have been. On my birthday, the universe's final joke, the day she'd once celebrated with chocolate cakes and off-key renditions of Happy Birthday, now marked in ashes. The guard pried the phone from my numb hand, saying, "That's it, time's up." Oh, how right he was. Time's up. Later, they'd say I didn't make a sound, that I just sat there staring at the concrete wall as if it might morph into her face one last time. But inside, I was 6 years old again, sobbing into her lap after my first fist fight. I was 30, her arms tight around me at Dad's funeral. I was 60, her laughter ringing through the phone. Oh, my wild boy, always chasing the next adventure. Now the adventures were over. And for the first time since they'd slapped the cuffs on me, I let the tsunami come.
Amazing. Well, if it gets to me like that, it's going to get to people, man. So I don't know what to say now. I'm filling up. That was a difficult one. I remember trying to read something at my mum's funeral. Real difficult. Real difficult. More difficult at my dad's, actually. But anyway, man, we can't have two old men blubbing on the screen for the rest of the podcast. So,
it says my battery's about ready to go out.
God, well, perfect timing. So listen,
Perfect
everybody,
time.
if you can't say anything for the moment, I can get a few words out. Everyone, underneath will be all the links you need. There'll be how to get in touch with Ken. If anybody would like to chat to Ken about making a film about this, publishing a book about this, doing the audio book, whatever. Let's get this out there. It's going to be incredibly entertaining, and it's how Ken bounces back from what these absolute fuckers have done to him. And Ken, thank you, man. That was amazing.
Thank you, Phil. You know, always a pleasure to see your mug.
You too. Oh, wow. Okay, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Ciao for now. Yep.
Music with the people.